welcome to Experiencing Consciousness. My name is Jan Dyba.
And I'm Dr. Kathryn Rossi. We're happy you're here. Well, I want to be with you. I don't want to be distracted, as adorable as she is.
My dog is already also missing me somewhere else.
Right. Well, usually I do, but today I didn't. So, but the most important thing is, that there's no pressure anywhere. It's about you discovering new consciousness within yourself. And, I'll tell you a little bit about me, is that I'm unusual as a psychotherapist in that I always follow, I almost never lead. I have no idea where we're going because I'm in the moment. And so it's not, there's zero manipulation, anything like that my genius is to help to bring things out of you. And so I have no plans. And I think that that's refreshing too. I think this is where creativity has its origin, is when it just plain evolves rather than to try to make something happen. So in this respect, I'm really quite unique. And of course, the natural way that we are as humans is we go into trance, the common everyday trance, probably 12 times a day.
A lot of things happened here, interesting things that I think constitute the framework for the process. And I'm going to share my ideas and you're going to tell me what do you think about that. Because first thing that you say is that it's going to be about creating new consciousness within Hubert. So that implies that something totally new is going to happen and that it's going to have to do with the awareness and consciousness. So there is one consciousness that's going to be enriched or substituted with another one, which is on one side, it's a dissociative statement, but on the other, it also launches us into the creative realm. And then you say that you are unusual, and that you are unusual in such a way that you always follow and never lead, almost never lead, and that there will be zero manipulations, that you have no plan, that's what creativity is about. And I'm thinking to myself, isn't that actually you are telling about yourself, or are you modeling for Hubert in this particular moment an experience of actually pure creativity with actually no plan, no direction? I mean, no direction that we know of, but something that happens unconsciously, and that, isn't that what actually creative process is about? That something is happening, let's say randomly, in this creative flux, and sometimes it comes out as an insight or something new, some idea, but most of the times we don't even know where it came from. So my question is, were you consciously trying to, or were you consciously modeling for Hubert here the creative process that that he actually want to work on and and enhance? Or is it only me thinking now that this is happening and there was something else to it on your side?
Well, you have a worthwhile interpretation, and that's the beauty of this, is that beauty's in the eyes of the beholder and what is received. I knew that Hubert was going to be having a number of sessions with people. So, and I wanted to tell him how it is that I work, and also to put him at ease of that this is how it's going to flow, is that I have no idea I'm in the present moment, but I'm going to follow you. and that to enhance whatever it is that's going on in you, and I'm going to follow you. And this is, again, giving him the lead, is that and it's conversational, but it's giving him the lead. And but I wanted him to understand that any therapist that you work with is going to be their own person. They're going to have their unique kinds of ways and theories. And in my case, because of I invent theories and practices, and also having learned so much from Ernest Rossi, my husband, among others. And so I wanted to be able to bring out the uniqueness, show the uniqueness in me, and bring out the uniqueness in him, as well as, again, seeding more for the unconscious process that was going to go on. I did not use the words curious, which a lot of people will use those words. I use them sometimes too, because it's invoking curiosity. Well, if you don't know what you're going to do, and I don't know what you're going to do, well, something curious is going to happen. But I try to use the least amount of words to get the point across.
So what were you actually seeding to the unconscious mind in this particular?
Creativity.
Creativity, okay.
Yeah, creativity. And that, and again, that there's an ease to it. And that it just as can be an ease to writing when you're in the flow. And so, ease was another element of this.
Okay. Hubert, would you like to share something here, or just interesting listening to?
As for now, interesting listening for to.
Okay. So then let's go back to the recording.
When we're sleeping and when we're awake.
Yeah.
And so trance is so normal that, and we don't always recognize when we're there. But you can actually learn to recognize when you're there in your everyday life. And then you can figure out, is this when my creativity is at its height? Is when I'm in this natural everyday trance, where the distractions, nothing's distracting, and where it's effortless to focus. And I find that this the psychobiology of what it is to be human, when you understand it, and you can kind of say, oh, well, here I'm in this special state. Oh, I think I'll just go with that right
So
now.
in this particular segment, you are associating trance, natural, common everyday trance, naturally occurring state of trance with the creativity. And then you say that it can be used even better. I mean, an implication when one learns to recognize it. Yeah. So my question is, what's the idea standing behind it? To combine creativity with trance, with natural, common everyday trance.
Well, it takes courage to mindfully go into a trance, or to recognize when you're going into a trance and staying with it, because you're going into an entirely different state of consciousness. And so, it takes courage, and I'm really there to be supportive. So if I tell you this is really natural, you're already doing this. You already do this at least 12 times a day. It takes the mystery out of it. That Hubert is not, but a lot of people are frightened of hypnosis. And so when it's put into the context of the real life context, that you do it all the time, you're just not necessarily recognizing it.
Mm-hmm.
So normalization, that that when you're going into the side of yourself, into that unconscious mind or minds, that it does take this courage to go there. And why not go there with calm and realizing how natural it is. And I do believe that when you can recognize that you're in trance, that that you're operating on a different kind of level, and that it's really quite wonderful to recognize when you're in trance. And again, many people, once they recognize it, they snap out of it really quick instead of utilizing it.
Mm-hmm. So at one side of it, it's taking care of Hubert, and so that he feels safe in this in this regard. But on the other hand, I'm also thinking, telling or saying that creativity is like a natural, common everyday trance that happens a few times a day. It's also implying that you already have within you what you need to have, what you want to have. Isn't that right?
Yeah, it's implied kind of distantly, you know. It's really about going into comfort first. If I didn't believe that he had the ability to be able to access that which is in himself, that is pushes him up over the top, excuse me, you know, I wouldn't work with him. You know, so naturally I do believe that he has that.
Mm-hmm.
As do you, Jan. As do I.
Of course. Okay, so let's proceed further with the recording.
And generally speaking, when you're in one of these states, you know, it goes anywhere from 20 minutes to 90 minutes. And most of us, we go to school and there's this expectation that we're going to be able to pay attention all day. And no, that's not how humans are. And and I know, because of your being a tour guide and the, you know, mountain adventures and things like that, is that you're an active person. So this sitting for long periods of time is not going to work for you. It's not who you are. It's not how you're built. So the question becomes, in my mind, how you're going to discover the genius aspects of yourself when it comes to writing, of being able to focus to do that, and to really appreciate if it's 20 minutes, if it's 90 minutes. Occasionally, it can go longer than that, you know, like upwards of 3 hours. And where I learned this from was from my husband, who was just about the kindest man that I ever met. And altogether, between the two of us, we've written 26 books.
Question. I mean, think it's pretty important, which goes, how, you know, how are you gonna discover a genius, you know, that is inside of you, or whatever that there was. That's actually an interesting question, because you don't ask him if he is going to discover that, or if he has that or not, or anything else for that matter. You actually ask him, how are you going to discover that, implying that there it is, and that it is to be discovered. And the question is not if we are going to discover that, or if he is going to discover that, but how is he going to discover that? And then you give him those time frames, you know, so that there are actually kinds of different ideas or frames in which he can actually discover that. And again, here also the question goes into, how are you going to do it, and not if you are going to do it. Am I correct here, or would you like to, you know, comment on that some more?
Oh, you're absolutely correct there. And I mean, I think that just about everybody that meets Hubert sees that there's a genius in him. And so, you know, I mean, he's so creative and this and that, you know, it's really something. And so, you know, I have no doubts with it. And say, for instance, I had a doubt, I might say, I wonder what it would be like for you to discover your genius. You know, I would say it in less direct terms, but and as a therapist, you know, I'm responding to so many things at the same time. A lot of things that you know, minimal cues and this and that, but then there's also this heart connection, you know, the eye connection. There's, you know, these things that are happening, and where I'm seeing, like, you know, subtle nods and, you know, and whatnot. And so that helps me to understand if I'm on the right track. And so I fully expect, as you know, as is true, that and as Hubert did, you know, in discovering his genius, you know, some more aspects of his various geniuses. And so, but I do believe, I firmly believe that everybody has a genius inside them. And it's a question of discovering it. You know, the genius might be that I have a neighbor who is really a genius with children. She is so good with children. And that our society doesn't recognize it as a genius, but I sure do. I mean, wow, you know, to have those kinds of abilities. And I think as therapists, for us to keep in mind that this person, no matter how hurting they are sitting in front of us, that they have some talents, they've got a genius. And wouldn't it be wonderful for them to discover that? And that's independent of trauma, it's independent of problems, but you know, that part in you that where you can just recognize it as truth of something really great that you know how to do.
Okay, great.
And actually, Janek, I don't know if you have noticed one thing that was I think it was also a nice detail, that when Kathryn was talking about also her husband, they introduced one thing. We were working together, and together we wrote 26 books. It was like the follow-up could have been anything, like together we helped thousands of people, or together we were doing, but the information was written books. We were writing books. That was also a detail, nice, which came to mind, which I noticed.
True, and I actually missed that one, and it's one important. Would you like to comment on that, Dr. Kathryn Rossi?
Oh, well, I know, you know, as a writer, that he would like to meet another writer.
Yeah.
You know, someone who knows what the process is that sometimes it flows so easily, and other times, boy, you know, you've just got to wrestle with it. So so that was you know, a way, an honest way of connecting, but basically saying, I know you're individual in how you go about doing what you're doing, but I sure know what it's like to write books.
Yeah, and something like for example, oh, if I write, I can also go up to 26 to 26
or more.
Or more.
Exactly. So that also kind of seeds a concept of a lot of concepts of writing, of finishing things, of creating books, of depends on personal associations that were launched within Hubert at that time. And about those, he's actually telling us right now. So Hubert, would you like to share some more, I mean, you know, connotations or associations that were present while Dr. Rossi was referring to this topic?
I think that's, we mentioned everything that I was thinking. I just thought that you might have missed this detail.
And I actually did, so thank you for, you know, kind of focusing my attention on it. Okay, so thank you, and let's go further to the movie.
Now, how the heck did that happen? And it happened that in his case, he would wake up in the morning and he would go to his computer, because, you know, now we're in the computer age versus writing by typewriter or by hand. And he would work until he got a signal that he was done for the day. And he almost never worked past 1 in the afternoon. Almost never. And then after that, he wasn't one that surfed the internet because that wasn't available, but then he would read books that were interesting to him, that might be on the same subject, might not, and then sleep on it. And then, you know, he had this creative time. So in his case, I think it's really interesting. Now, I'm more for doing it later in the day. It's that I can sit down in the evenings. If I try to force myself, you know, to go in the morning, I can't, you know, I can't do it because I have to move my body. I cannot get up and sit. So to give you like this little bit of a background.
So background will be the next section, but for that moment. So you are actually modeling to him or telling him how you are doing that with Dr. Rossi, with Dr. Ernest Rossi, and how he did that. So that's kind of like a separate idea on, you know, way to achieve the goal. Modeling some sort of like, you know, process here or ability, something like that. But then on the other hand, you say, I cannot do it this way because I have this, you know, and it's referring to this attentional kind of abilities that you both have, I presume. And then you say to Hubert, so I do it this way. And I'm thinking to myself, another way, a totally different way of achieving the same goal. Possibly, maybe more fitted to Hubert's abilities if you actually share those qualities, those attentional qualities. So is that actually, is all this part of the conversation actually a modeling of the process of few kind of like options on how to achieve the goal that he wanted to achieve, or filled up with suggestions also, but the main theme, is it this one? Do I see it correctly, or would you like to, you know, add something to it?
Well, yes, the idea is that there's a lot of roads to get to Rome, and that you discover the one that works for you. And so, you know, the success that Ernie had, you know, he had a schedule that really worked for him, and he just plain kept that schedule up until about 6 months before he died. You know, he just had that schedule, and I tried to imitate it, and I was not successful imitating his schedule. I had to find my own. And I think that it's really, you know, powerful, because too often we just try to imitate somebody else, and instead of finding our own way. And so to talk about the biological rhythms and how you're most likely to be successful is education. and that yes, you discover it for yourself of these time frames, but sometimes you need to have a little education about this so that you can make wiser decisions, and most importantly, that when you can't keep going and going and going, that you don't go to the place of negativity. You don't say, well, I'm lazy, or I'm this, or I'm that, because I can't keep going. Understanding that nature builds in breaks, and so to honor those breaks. And there's so many people that suffer from not understanding this. And so it's about being successful, but it's also, the implication is, how you can feel good about yourself the entire time. I didn't say the word criticism, of how to not criticize yourself, but when you follow patterns that are consistent with your own body, then you have a greater propensity for success. And in my case, I get up in the morning, I have to move. That's true. I have to move. I can't just do what Ernie did. He'd crawl out of bed and then, he'd find his fingers on the keyboard. And you got to find your own way. So that's really what that was about. So there's a lot of levels
in this indirect communication.
Yeah. Well, some of it's indirect, some of it's quite direct. That there's a combination of that, is that when I give these time frames that are pretty darn robust, of how you can feel really good. Like if you can go at it for 20 minutes, you can feel really good about that. If it ends up being 3 hours, you can go, you can really just plain go with that and feel really good at it. And then when you're recognizing where your body is kicking you out of that and going into doing something different or having a rest, in appreciating that. And then when you don't have the critical mind going on, it's easier to sit down and write. Because you don't have all that, junk interference. You just get to go with the words and the subject that's fascinating you.
Junk interference. I like that term. So there's clearly a lot of levels in this multiple level communication around here.
Well, and that was certainly something that Erickson promoted, is give a lot of avenues that people can take. And they'll take the one or ones that are valuable at the time.
Yeah, that fits them best in their current situation.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go further with the recording.
The idea is, in whatever you do, and especially you're going to be a parent, it's that when are you ideal for being with your child? It could be first thing in the morning. It could be, like whenever that is. So not that you have always that time available, but to be able to tune into, what, this is when I'm the most giving. This is when I'm the most nurturing. This is when I can really, pay attention. And so obviously I have not talked about a single psychological problem, right? Because I think that you have to set the stage for yourself to be successful in all things, and to recognize that there's a lot of different consciousnesses on the inside of you. Is this making sense?
A lot of things happening in this small segment. First question would be, why do you bring up in this particular segment the question of being a parent? I mean, because when you did that, I saw Hubert smiling very like wildly. So I'm thinking wide smile and stuff, and I'm thinking to myself, is it to associate the processes of discovering, of finding creativity and stuff with something like parenthood that clearly makes Hubert happy at that moment in the recording? Or is it more to integrate those things together as one process of looking for meanings and stuff? And then when you say to him in the next sentence that it's the question, or question of setting the stage for him. So you say that it's the important thing is to set the stage for yourself. And I'm thinking to myself, I mean, it's a very general statement of, what does it actually mean to set the stage? So these are my questions.
To set the stage for success.
Mm-hmm.
The word success was there. And to be a successful parent is huge. Children are really distracting. And imagine this, that if you know the time of day that you're most likely to be there 100% for your child, and you have that time carved out so you can do it, not distracted, just being with that child, the satisfaction of that, the connection of that is massive. And so continuing this idea of success, this idea of joy, and the idea of the ultradian rhythms, so that you can ease into a dramatic life change and still be able to write. So that's really what my motivation was here. So I'm curious, do you know if you're going to have a boy or a girl?
Not yet.
Oh, I can hardly wait.
Yeah, not yet.
It's important because it's a question of if you are going to call them John or Kathryn.
You can name her. You can name her Ruby after if it's a girl. Ruby's a nice name.
Yeah. Actually, Kathryn is the name of the mother.
Oh, okay. Well, then probably
Katie.
Yeah, probably not going to go with that one. But, so, I mean, but I'm excited for you. But what did Hubert, in this little section, how did it touch you?
Yeah, because for example, for me, it's still a very new thing to be called a parent. Like I have been called other things for a long time, and now it's like being a called, and it was actually one of the first times somebody else except for myself in my mind called me like that. So it was that's why I smiled. It was like, oh, somebody called me like that, and that's a new thing. That's something nice and warm. And actually my mind was also a bit associated, be something that will have to teach me time management very, very good, and that will, because it's not like that I will have any choice. It just will do that. No matter if I'm ready or not ready to, or no matter force me. Actually, a bit of association between being parent and being a writer is like a bit like you're the father of all these characters, and you have to take care of them, and you have to give them attention, give them time, because it's also quite similar. It's of course not the same thing, but it is like you're creating a new like life that maybe it's only living inside of the novel on paper, but it is there is a small there is some connection between those two things. So it is like it basically gave some very positive vibes, very this kind of rise of responsibility of having time management, of being responsible, of actually doing that. Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of positive connotations.
Okay. All right. Very interesting insight. This was another episode of our Experiencing Consciousness podcast. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Jan. You're the best. Be well, be happy, celebrate life.